this church, but for all the churches that are across America, that are all over the world. We have been talking about our gifts. And today we're going to talk about discovering your God-given purpose. And as I look at this today, I want you just to consider something just for a minute. There are, as we're sitting here right now, there are millions of people all over the world. And just in the United States alone, people sitting in church just like we are right now. All across California, they have been in church long before us because of the time zone difference between how many know that in New York, how many hours?
Sound up there.
I see you're awake today. 3 hours difference, so much different time zone. They've already been in church this morning. They've already praised and worshiped God. And they've already come and assembled together as a group of people that Jesus Christ himself came down to earth and he died so that we could have what we have here today. And when we look at this, we see that these folks that are getting together all over the United States, there's a reason for it. And it's something that down deep inside every one of us has inside of us. I want you just to sit back for a moment and just think about this. There is something that God gave to each one of us to where we are reaching for something higher than ourselves. That's why when you drive down the street, as I was this morning, I saw church parking lots full of cars. And as I was driving, I was thinking, God, what drives these people? It's not just because of some great pastor, this orator, or this great worship team. It's not just because of the building. It's not just because of how it is so great there at that church. It's because each and every one of us have a God-given desire to reach for something higher than ourselves. And that's why when we look and we all around the world see so many different religions, you know what they're all doing? They're all reaching for something higher than themselves. They have shrines, they have gods that are wooden gods, they have gods that aren't even alive, they have all of these things that they worship because they are looking for something that is way beyond their own limitations. And that's what I love about God, is that God will take you and he will actually take and pull you to something beyond your own limitations. It's what he does. That's who God is. God is God, and he is creator of all things, so we are the created. So what would he be better doing than to rule this universe without actually grabbing a hold of those that he created and drawing those to something much greater than themselves, drawing those to much greater than their own limitations. How many would agree today that you have limitations? Do you think that you can do all of the things right now that we see? How about a quarterback? All of a sudden, if Joe, we suited you up today, we sent you up to the Raiders, and we said, here's the ball, Joe, you're in. It's game time. You're suited up, and you would say, that's not my calling, that's not my gifting. And it's amazing that my cousin, who I really never mentioned, he's the quarterback for the Raiders, and I just think about that, about how that I actually met my wife through his mother, and how they put us all together, and how that they were just these little kids being raised. And who would have ever known that this kid that I looked at is just like a kid that was lined up here today, and that he had that inside of him, and that he would be recognized by a talent scout up there at Fresno State, and they would grab him, and then now I can sit back on TV and say, that's that little kid I saw, and he's playing as quarterback for one of the most famous, well, some of you may be booing this right now, but the Raiders, I'm not going to say who I'm for, but they are a famous NFL team. And so how do you know what is inside of you? And that's the thing I love about God, is it does not matter how old you are and how young you are, is that he is constantly pulling you up to something much bigger than you could ever even think about yourself doing. Isn't that amazing? So as you sit there right now, don't look at this as just another message where you come and you sit down and you just listen and you leave, you get back in your car and you just go back to what you're doing. Just put the car and drive and hit the gas, and it just shifts the gears, and you go home and just go through the same routine that you've always gone through. Look at it and say, God, you are really, no matter where I'm at right now, you're calling me to something greater than myself. You're calling me way beyond my own limitations. And I just have to be open, and I have to be ready to receive your word so that I can find this place where you actually want me to be. How many believe you have purpose in this place today? How many believe that what you're doing right now is not, your heart is still beating? How many believe that you have a further way to go? You have more to do. You have more that God is going to actually put you in charge of, authority over. You don't even know what it is, but there's something that you have not fully developed yet that God is going to develop in you if you allow Him to do what He does best. So we're going to read this scripture opening today, and it's found in Romans chapter 12, 4 through 8. And to me, it's an amazing scripture because it says so much. I'd never be able to cover what's in the scripture today completely in its entirety. But in the context of it, I'm going to try to take it and let you see a little bit about what Paul is saying here when he wrote Romans, when he's talking to us now in the 21st century. Here's what Paul said. For just as each of us have one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. So you can see what Paul is getting into here. And then he even goes on to say in verse 8, he says, I know we're having some technical difficulty back there today, but there it is. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. So I want to read this story to you. I came across it the other day, and I really thought what it did to me when I was reading it just said so much about, here an illustration about fish, and about what I'm going to talk about today. So listen to this story as I read it to you. And once was a man who netted 3 trout from a mountain stream, and carefully placed them side by side on a thick patch of grass. Before he removed them from the water, they were like liquid ballet in motion, fluid, graceful, vibrant, alive. After he netted them, it was another story. As he laid the trout on the grass, they were motionless. Their eyes were fixed, they gasped for air, and they looked and acted stupid. The man noticed they seemed unhappy, so he talked to them, hoping that his encouragement would change them. Little fish, don't be sad. You'll like the grass. Just try it out for a while. No movement, no response, no change. A few more seconds passed. The man's neighbor walked by. Hey, Bob, come and check out these fish. Bob sauntered over, and the man explained that he was certain the fish could adjust. I'm sure they could prosper here on the grass. Don't you agree? Why not? Bob replied. So he also tried to tell the fish it would be good if they learned to like the grass. After all, he liked the grass. Why shouldn't they? Still, the fish didn't blink. They just lay there looking dumber by the second. Finally, a little boy approached and he exclaimed, "What are you doing? Put them back. They can't be all they've been created to be when they are out of the water." Finally convinced, the man carefully placed each fish back in the stream. After splashing for a split second, all 3 swam away effortlessly. Again, it was like a liquid ballet. What ease, what grace, what beauty. In that moment, the man realized that no matter how long the fish laid there, they would never adjust to the grass and would never be satisfied. No matter how much he or anyone else told them otherwise, even if the fish tried to convince themselves they could learn to like the grass, they never would. And they would never prosper. In fact, they would eventually die. Have you ever felt like that you were a fish out of water? Yes. I know I'm talking to some of you today. I know how in my life, over the different chapters that have turned, how that I felt. It just seems like you have been feeling dissatisfied forever. You're sitting there right now with God-given gifts in this place right now. Whether you believe it or not, whether you realize it or not, some of you may already be developing those gifts. Some of you may have said, like we do at the beginning of the year, you know, every year it's getting ready to come up faster than you think. It's going to be January and you're going to be saying my New Year's resolutions. Well, it's just like that with gifts. God will speak to you, and over the years, you have things that, like seeds planted, and somebody will say something, and again, you'll hear a song. You'll be in church, you'll hear a message, you'll have your friends tell you of things that they see in you, the gifting and the talent. You could sing, have you ever thought about it? And then in your mind you say, well, you know, I'll get to that. Someday I will do that. So it's been inside of you. Many of you sitting there today, it's been in you for a long time already. This isn't anything new that I'm telling you today. You already have a seed that's been planted in there, and sometimes the seed, the growth of it has been stunted through life. All of a sudden you have a bunch of kids. All of a sudden you're married. All of a sudden you got to work. You got a job. All of a sudden, and all of these dots happen, and you say, I'll get to that, God. I know that you have been sharing with me for years what it is that you are going to have me do, because I feel it inside me. It's much bigger than I could ever even imagine. It's way beyond my limitations, but if you said it's in me, then I'm going to cultivate it, and I'm going to see what this life has for me. That's what's exciting about living for God. It's not just religion. It's not just this coming to church and having this life that is so mundane and going through the motions and being dissatisfied forever. Your passions and even your friends have been speaking to you what you've already known down deep inside for a long time. How many can relate to me about that right now? They've already been talking to you, and you know those passions are down deep inside of you. And this next scripture, in verse 4b, it tells us of everything that we have in this church right now and how powerful it is. If I were to go through one by one and find out what each one of your gifts and your talents are, it would be so diverse, wouldn't it? It would be so amazing. Some of you could build things, some of you could write poems, some of you could sing, some of you could play an instrument, some of you could administrate, some of you are good at working on cars, some of you could do some amazing things to some of us because that's not the gift that God gave us, but yet you're sitting there with it right now. You're sitting where you're sitting right now with all this that God gave you. It's like when you were born, He wrote your DNA, He wrote the way that you're wired, and He put all that inside of you. Have you ever noticed that about working with people? It's like they're so different than you. And you see them just pick up something and they make it look so easy. You say, I could never do that. But you have some things that you could do that I assure you that they could never do. And so that's why this scripture is so amazing. And these members do not all have the same function. So remember that everybody in this church right now does not have the same function. And it's not just about working in the church now. I want you to broaden your mind a little bit and think this is way beyond just what we do in the church. Because we have a life outside the church here. We have jobs, we have families, we have neighbors, we have many things that we do outside the church that also take these gifts into consideration, the things that God put in you, so that we can do what? So that we can make the life of all the people around us, the little bit that we put in, and make their life much better. Would you agree with me today that you can either tear things down wherever you go, you can just be walking along, just ripping things up and just, you know, it's like, I was talking to somebody before the church this morning, it's like some men's life are like a demolition derby, and they're inside that demo car, and they are just running into everything they can, so that when you look behind them, there's a path of destruction, a pathway of all these tore up lives, and these tore up cars. But don't get depressed if that's you, because God says that you're a new creature and the old is gone. You don't look back, you look forward, and God takes what you have. Maybe as a little kid you were given it, and you didn't do anything with it until maybe today. And then you decide to do something with it. You may be 30, you may be 40, you may be 50, you may be like in your 60s like I am. And it's not too late. That's the thing I love about God. He can make more happen in a second than we could in an 80-year lifespan.
Come on.
He can give you favor with man. He can give you favor with everything that you touch, so that you actually are successful in everything that you do. That's the God kind of mind. Sometimes we think dissatisfaction is this bad thing. We just have to get over it. Just suck it up, ignore it. But I want to tell you today that sometimes it's God making us uncomfortable so that we will find that place where God can shine through us. So this dissatisfaction that you are dealing with, perhaps right now I'm bringing it up to the surface. You're saying, man, I am dissatisfied. I got a man that I'm married to and I love him. I got kids. My kids are the best kids. Well, sometimes. I've got a job where we're able to pay our bills. We're not rich, but we're able to pay our bills. Why am I so dissatisfied with my life? Well, you're going to be able to hear today what it might be. It might be God actually making you dissatisfied so that He can get you out of where you are so that His light and His glory can shine through you as His vessel here on earth. That may be what this dissatisfaction is. So when we look at this next verse 6, we can see that in verse 6 we have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. So each one of us, God is sovereign, and I can't tell God. My daughter's an RN nurse. Okay, the kind of stuff that she does, that she comes home and tells me that she does, I couldn't do. I can tell you right now. Even if I studied and I went through all that she went through for all the years, you put me in that hospital, and you put me under that doctor's orders, and you have me going into those rooms and dealing with those patients. That's not what I'm gifted to do. That's not what I'm wired to do. So does that make me less of a person? No, because that's what my daughter loves to do. That's her gifting. She was able to go through with the textbooks that she brought home, what she was studying for. I looked at those words and I said, oh, I have no idea. I never saw those words in my life. They were words this long that didn't even make any sense because it's the doctor's world, it's the nurse's world. But for her, it was just click, click, click. She goes in and takes the NCLEX test, state of California. She passes it. If you hadn't had me study for 2 years for that, I would have gone in there and I would have come back with an F. Does that make me less of a person? It does not make me less of a person. I am still standing tall with God, not with anything that I can do, but with God, what He placed inside of me. Maybe I failed at all kinds of other things, but God is saying that's because I want you to move over here, and this is where I'm going to shine through you. This is where you are just going to grow up, and you are going to be so powerful, but you will never be able to forget the moment that you step out and say, I did this on my own, then God will cut you down a few notches, and He'll remind you of who is sovereign, of who gave you the gift, of whose grace it was. It's through the grace of God and the grace of Jesus Christ, the life that He came to cause us to be able to rise up. Now, the human body is fascinating. Now, I've learned a lot through my daughter and all the things she's brought home with the human body and all the things that she encounters. I've learned a lot. But I will never, don't come to me and ask me to diagnose your problem because I'm not going to play doctor. Because it's much more complicated than that. But now, if you want me to pray for you on what God is I feel like He's given me to do, what I love to do, I'll pray for you for the divine healer, for the master physician of all times, Jesus, came in Isaiah 53, 4 and 5, He took stripes upon His back for our very healing, so that every Christian has this right to ask the Father in the name of the Son of Jesus. He's the Son. He's the Son of God, Jesus Christ, that we can actually have physical healing. Now, if you want me to give you diagnosis on that, I'll do that, but I can't do it through medicine. That is another gifting. That's something else that God gave because He is sovereign. So He's using the human body, which is fascinating to me, to show us how important each one of us is. We are one body with different functions. We are all needed for the health of this body. So it's unity with diversity. It's an irony, isn't it? Because we're unified, we're all together, but yet we are so diverse. Sometimes dissatisfaction, it can be the result of also spiritual warfare, because I wanted to make sure that I clarified this today.